Good morning, dear Sangha. Today is November the 6th in the year 2010. And we are in Vukaisha Youth Village on the third day of our retreat with the theme Happiness is here and now.
大家好，今日係2010年11月6號，係我哋香港禪修營嘅第3日，主題係幸福是此時此地。
The day before yesterday, a young man of 13 years old living in Phu Quang Street in Vương Tai Sinh, he tried to hang himself.
前日有一個住喺黃大仙嘅男士，佢30歲，佢想要吊頸。
And he was saved by his mother.
佢媽媽救返佢。
He may try to do it again.
但佢可能會再次嘗試咁樣做。
And I don't know whether his mother know how to help him and to prevent him from doing the same.
我唔知道佢嘅媽媽識唔識得去幫助佢，去避免佢再次咁樣做。
In Japan, every year there are about 35,000 young people committing suicide.
喺日本，每一年有大概35,000個年青人自殺。
In France, where I live, every day there are about 35 of them committing suicide.
喺法國我住嘅地方，每一日大概有35位年青人自殺。
And the number of young people who commit suicide is bigger than in Great Britain, America.
年青人自殺嘅數目比英國更加大。
The young people committing suicide feel that there is no way to stop suffering except by killing themselves.
自殺嘅年青人，佢哋可能有其他出路，佢哋認為唯一一條出路就係自殺。
They do not know how to handle a strong emotion.
佢哋唔識得點樣去處理強烈嘅情緒。
That is why we practitioners we have to learn how to deal with a strong emotion, and if we know how to do that, it will help our children and our students to do it.
因此，作為禪修者，我哋要學習方法去處理強烈嘅情緒，好讓我哋能夠幫助我哋嘅子女或者學生。
As parents, we should know how to do it, and we can teach our children while they are still young.
作為父母，我哋需要懂得去收集，亦都係因為我哋懂得收集，先至可以教導我哋嘅子女收集。
As school teachers, we should learn how to do it, and we can teach our students because their parents might not have had a chance to learn.
作為老師，我哋需要學習。我哋學習之後可以教導我哋嘅學生，因為我哋嘅學生嘅父母可能唔懂得去收集。
If you are a legislator, you may like to talk to your colleagues in order to discuss about a kind of law that can help putting that kind of learning and practice in every school.
如果你係一位立法局議員，你可以同其他嘅議員一齊討論，將呢一個收集同埋教導
And if you are a minister of education, you might like to think about that and how to have all the school teachers learn this practice and transmit it to the students.
如果你係立職於教育局，希望你可以喺香港嘅教育制度入邊推行呢一個禪修，去幫助老師同埋學生。
We should learn that an emotion is only an emotion. It is like a storm. It can come and stay for some time, and it has to go after a while. And why do we have to die because of just one emotion?
我哋要知道情緒只係情緒，佢就好似風暴一樣，佢嚟咗之後會走。點解我哋要因為一個情緒而去死呢？
We are much more than one emotion.
我哋比一個情緒係更加大嘅。
The territory of our person includes form, feelings, perceptions, mental formation, consciousness, very vast. And emotion is only a tiny part of it.
我哋包括咗我哋嘅身體、我哋嘅感受、我哋嘅認知、心識等等，而情緒只係我哋其中嘅一小部分。
The first thing we should memorize, we should learn, is that we are much more than one emotion.
我哋首先要學習嘅係知道，我哋並唔單止係我哋嘅情緒。
The second thing you should know is that an emotion is impermanent. The emotion comes, stay for some time, and will have to go away.
第二樣我哋要學到嘅係知道情緒係無常嘅，佢會出現，但佢亦都會走。
And if you know how to practice, and then we can survive the emotion very easily.
如果你懂得點樣去收集，我哋會可以好容易咁處理到我哋嘅情緒。
When you look at through the window in the time of a storm, and if you focus your attention on the top of the tree, you may see the leaves and the little branches swing back and forth violently, and you may have the impression that the tree will be blown away by the storm.
如果喺風暴之中，我哋從窗望出去外邊，我哋見到喺樹頂嘅樹枝，佢好大力不斷咁樣搖動，可能我哋會以為呢一棵樹好容易會被呢一個風暴吹走。
But if we focus our attention down to the trunk of the tree, seeing that the tree is deeply rooted in the soil, you have another impression. You know that the tree is going to stand the storm.
但係如果你將注意力放喺樹幹嘅話，你會知道樹幹係好穩陣嘅，佢嘅根深植於大地，佢可以喺風暴之中依然安穩咁樣屹立。
So in the time of a strong emotion, we should not stay on the top of the tree, which is on the level of our brain, but we should bring our attention down to the Dandian point, which is the trunk. Our trunk is down here.
因此喺情緒嘅風暴之中，我哋唔好將注意力放喺樹頂嘅樹枝，即係我哋頭腦嗰度，我哋要將我哋嘅注意力帶落我哋嘅丹田嘅部分，即係樹幹。
When we have the impression that this storm is coming, the strong emotion is going up, we should know exactly what to do right away. 當我哋感到情緒嘅風暴即將來臨，感覺到情緒正向住我哋頭腦上升嘅時候，我哋喺嗰刻就要知道點樣去處理。We should sit down like in this position, or we should lay down.
我哋可以坐低，好似而家你哋大家一齊坐緊咁樣，或者我哋可以躺下來。
We may like to put our hands on our abdomen and focus our attention on the rise and fall of our abdomen while breathing in and out.
我哋可以將我哋嘅手放喺腹部，去感覺我哋喺呼吸時腹部嘅喜樂。
Your attention should be focused entirely on the fall and rise of up your abdomen, because when you breathe in deeply, your abdomen will rise, and when you breathe out, it will fall.
我哋將注意力完全放喺腹部嘅喜樂之上。當我哋呼吸嘅時候，腹部會上升；呼氣嘅時候，腹部會下降。
If you can focus your attention on the rise and fall of your abdomen with concentration, and then you are able to stop the thinking.
如果你將注意力放喺你呼吸時腹部嘅喜樂嘅上面嘅時候，你可以停止到你嘅思想。
Because in the time of a strong emotion, thinking might increase the strength of the emotion.
因為如果喺強烈嘅情緒風暴之中，你嘅注意力唔係放喺你嘅思想嘅時候，你可能會更加加劇咗呢場風暴。
So you stop the thinking altogether and focus your attention just on the rise and fall of your abdomen and stick to that.
你完全停止你嘅思想，將你嘅注意力只係放喺腹部嘅喜樂。
And it's like you embrace firmly the trunk of the tree.
就好似你緊緊抱住一棵樹嘅樹幹。
That is the practice of deep belly breathing.
呢個就係好深入嘅呼吸呼吸練習。
And in that position, in that practice, you stand firm, and the emotion cannot do anything to you.
當你咁樣收集嘅時間，你會覺得非常之安穩，呢個情緒風暴唔會可以影響到你。
5 minutes later or 10 minutes later, it will go away.
5分鐘或者10分鐘之後，情緒嘅風暴會離開。
And when the emotion goes away, you have confidence. You know that next time when it comes, you are no longer afraid. You know how to handle a strong emotion.
當情緒嘅風暴離開嘅時候，你會有信心。如果下一次呢個風暴再嚟嘅時候，你會懂得點樣去處理。
During the practice, two things could be remembered. The first thing is that you are much more than your emotion, and the second thing is that the emotion will have to go away after a while.
喺呢個修習裏邊有兩點係請大家記住嘅。第一點就係你唔單止係你嘅情緒，第二點係情緒佢係會離開嘅。
So during the time of practice, you need your mindfulness of these two things, and mindfulness of the rise and fall of your abdomen.
喺呢一個練習裏邊，我哋要有兩種嘅正念。第一個就係正念咁覺知呼吸時間腹部嘅喜樂。
We should not wait until the emotion comes in order to practice, because naturally you will forget.
我哋唔可以等到情緒風暴嚟嘅時候先至收集，因為如果到咗嗰個時候，好可能你會唔記得去收集。
We have to start right now, today. If every day we practice for 5 minutes of that kind of breathing, and then in a few weeks it will become a habit, a good habit.
我哋要喺呢一刻就開始去收集，每一日都收集。經過咗一段時間之後，呢一個會成為你嘅習慣。
And when a strong emotion comes, we will remember to practice.
當情緒嘅風暴到嚟嘅時候，你會記得練習。
And if our child is in a crisis, we might like to hold his hand and invite him or her to breathe in and breathe out with us, and focus their attention on the rise and fall of their abdomen.
當你嘅子女佢喺危機之中， 你可以輕輕咁樣拖住佢隻手，同佢一齊練習腹式呼吸，將注意力放喺腹部呼吸時嘅起落。
When you hold the hand of your child, you transmit to him or to her your energy of mindfulness, your solidity, and your child will be able to breathe in with you, breathe out with you, and learn how to protect himself or herself from the storm of emotion.
當你拖住你嘅孩子嘅手一齊收集嘅時間，你將你正面同埋安穩嘅能量傳遞俾佢，讓佢亦都能夠可以知道喺情緒風暴嚟嘅時候點樣去處理。
And if you do it with your child several times, later on, your child will know how to do it by himself or herself alone.
如果你咁樣同你嘅孩子一齊收集咗幾次之後，你嘅孩子會懂得自己去收集。
The young man who tried to hang himself the day before yesterday, he was only 13.
前日嗰位想吊頸嘅男士，佢只係30歲。
So if your child is only 5 or 6, you can already teach him or her to do deep breathing.
當你嘅孩子5歲或者6歲嘅時候，你已經可以開始教佢做呢一個腹式呼吸嘅練習。
I believe that parents have to learn how to do it and transmit the practice to their children, and school teachers also have to learn these things and teach the students.
我相信家長可以咁樣去練習，而喺學校嘅老師亦都可以咁樣去練習，將呢一個收集嘅方法教俾你嘅學生。
There are neural pathways that we use to travel on, and we go to the state of anger, irritation, despair very quickly.
有時我哋好快就去到一啲憤怒、失落等等嘅情緒。
As practitioners, we can open up the neural pathway in order to get into another direction, not the direction of anger, despair.
作為禪修者，我哋可以為自己開啟其他嘅道路，通向其他嘅感受，而唔係憤怒等等嘅感受。
There is a mental formation called contact soup.
有一個心行，佢叫做觸。
Spacha. And contact naturally lead to feelings.
觸會帶嚟感受。
And feelings lead to perception.
感受會帶嚟想認知。
And perception leads to volition, intention.
想帶嚟思。
Tu here means cetana, the desire to act.
思喺呢度嘅意思，即係你想做某一啲嘢。
When people say something, when you see something, you touch the unpleasant thing, you have a perception on that, you suffer and you want to act, you want to punish.
當呢個人講咗一啲嘢嘅時候，接觸到你一啲唔愉悅嘅感受，你建立咗一啲認知，而去想做某一啲事情。
This feeling is a painful feeling.
呢一個感受係我哋心入邊生起嘅感受。
This perception is a wrong perception, a wrong view.
呢一個認知係一個錯誤嘅認知，錯誤嘅見解。
So the kind of contact you get can give rise to a painful feeling, a wrong perceptions, and because of the wrong perceptions, you want to punish, you want to do something violently in order to punish the person you think that responsible for your suffering.
我哋接觸到嘅事物帶嚟痛苦嘅感受，再帶嚟錯誤嘅認知，因而我哋想要去做某啲事情懲罰嗰個人。
And that is a very popular, very usual neural pathway that we follow in our daily life.
呢條咁樣嘅路向係我哋喺日常生活之中經常都會跟隨嘅路向。
These four mental formations are described in Buddhism as universal mental formations.
呢一啲心行喺佛教嚟講，我哋係將佢形容為普遍嘅心行。
But we have other mental formations that are universal. They are particular, but they are very useful to intervene in order to help us go into a better direction than the direction of anger and punishment.
但係有另外一啲嘅心行，佢哋係普遍或者特別嘅心行，佢哋可以介入，令我哋唔會走向憤怒嘅方向。
We have the particular mental formation called mindfulness.
我哋有一個特別嘅心行係念正念。
And mindfulness can intervene.
正念可以介入。
If mindfulness can intervene here, and then the feeling will not be the same feeling.
如果念去介入觸嘅話，我哋嘅感受唔會再係一樣。
Mindfulness leads to concentration.
念帶嚟定，即係專注。
And concentration leads to insight.
專注帶嚟智慧。
This is understanding.
智慧亦即係了解。
We just said that during the time of the strong emotion, we should remember two things.
我哋頭先講過喺強烈嘅情緒風暴之中，我哋要記得兩樣嘢。
The first thing is that we are much more than our emotion.
第一樣，我哋唔單單只係我哋嘅情緒。
That is understanding.
呢一個已經係了解同埋智慧。
That is the right view.
係正見。
It's not wrong view like in this case.
並唔係剛才頭先所講錯誤嘅見解。
The second thing we remember is that emotion is impermanent. It comes, stay for a while, and we have to go. Why do we have to die because of just one emotion?
第二個我哋要記得嘅係情緒，佢嚟咗之後佢會離開。點解我哋要為咗一個情緒而死呢？
So, if we go this way, and then the kind of feeling we got is no longer the same painful feeling, but the feeling of compassion for us and for the person we believe to be the cause of our suffering.
如果我哋 行認定為呢個方向，我哋所產生到嘅感受就再唔係頭先所講嘅痛苦感受，而係一個慈悲嘅感受。我哋對自己慈悲，亦都對我哋以為係傷害我哋嘅人慈悲。
And following this neural pathway, we arrive at another kind of intention that is totally different.
如果我哋跟住呢一條路線走嘅話，我哋最終於去到嘅思，我哋想做嘅嘢會係完全唔同嘅。
This understanding tells us that not only us is suffering, but the other person we have thought to be the cause of suffering, he or she is full of suffering also. So the feeling here is no longer a feeling of anger, but a feeling of compassion.
呢個智慧同埋了解令我哋知道我哋心中有痛苦，但係另外嗰個你以為係令你痛苦嘅人，其實佢心中亦都有痛苦，因而我哋生起慈悲嘅感受。
And when the nectar of compassion is born in your heart, you suffer less right away.
當慈悲嘅甘露喺你心中生起，喺嗰刻你嘅痛苦已經大大減少。
And instead of having the intention to say something to make him suffer, to do something to make him suffer, you have the good intention of helping him, of helping her to suffer less.
你唔再想做一啲嘢或者講一啲嘢令佢痛苦，相反你想做一啲嘢去幫助佢。
So the people who do not practice follow usually this neural pathway. But with us who know the practice, we don't follow that way. We open up another path that includes mindfulness, concentration, understanding, and we will modify, transform the feeling, and we will act with compassion.
一般人佢哋會跟隨上邊嗰條路線，但係因為我哋懂得去收集，我哋會跟隨下邊嗰條路線，令另外嘅能量能夠生起正面嘅感受，因而我哋想要做一啲正面嘅事情去幫助大家，幫助自己或者幫助嗰個人。The young people are invited to go out with the young monks and nuns and continue their practice outside. 我哋嘅年青朋友，請你而家可以跟隨我哋年青嘅法師們出去外邊繼續修習。
There are about 100 of them among us, and they are here for the day. So they, yeah.
今日有100位嘅年青人嚟同我哋一齊嚟修習一日。
Dear friends, many of you know about the 4 mantras. The number of mantras have become 5. There is a 5th mantra.
各位朋友，可能你哋好多人已經學過4個真言，但而家我哋有第5個真言。
The first mantra I like to remind you, and because there are new friends, is darling, I am here for you.
我想提醒大家第1個真言，因為有好多位朋友係第一次到嚟。第1個真言就係、親愛的，我喺呢度為咗你。
And you can practice in Cantonese. You don't have to practice in Sanskrit.
你可以用廣東話去講呢個真言。
When you love someone, the most precious thing you offer him or her is your true presence.
當你愛一個人，最珍貴嘅禮物，你可以送俾佢嘅係你真真正正嘅存在。
How can you love if you are not there?
如果你唔係真正存在嘅話，你點樣可以去愛？
And to be there, body and mind united, is a practice of mindfulness.
真正存在，亦即係身心一體，呢、個就係正念嘅修習。
You need only to breathe in mindfully, breathe out mindfully, or take 1 or 2 steps and bring your mind back to your body, and there you are fully present in the here and the now, and you might use that presence to offer to your beloved one.
只需要吸氣、呼氣，或者走1、2步，你就可以將身心帶返埋一齊，真真正正存在。你可以將呢一份禮物送俾你心愛嘅人。
If the person you love is too busy, his body may be there, but his mind is elsewhere. You don't have the impression that you are loved.
如果你愛嘅人佢非常之忙碌，佢身體喺呢度，但佢嘅心去咗第二度嘅話，你唔會覺得你係真正被愛。
That person may not have enough time for himself or herself. How could he or she has time for you?
佢可能對佢自己嚟講，亦都冇足夠嘅時間。咁佢如何可以有時間去俾你呢？
So the practice of mindful breathing, mindful walking in just 1 or 2 minutes help to bring your mind back to your body so that you can be fully alive, fully present, and you can go to him or her and pronounce mantra, darling, I'm here for you.
1、2分鐘嘅正面呼吸同埋正面步行嘅修習，已經可以將你嘅心帶回身體，你真真正正咁樣為佢而存在。你可以走去佢嗰度同佢講第一句真言：親愛的，我愛你在此。
And even if your beloved one is in his office, you can practice. You use your portable telephone and practice the mantra.
如果你愛嘅人佢喺辦公室工作，你亦都可以收集呢一個真言。你可以用你嘅手提電話打電話俾佢，同佢講。
I guarantee that if you practice with all your heart, mindfully, with concentration, he or she will be happy right away, and you also.
我可以保證，如果你全心全意、有正念同埋專注咁樣去收集呢一個真言，喺當下嗰刻，佢已經會覺得幸福快樂，而你亦都會覺得幸福快樂。
And this practice is so easy, very pleasant, and has an effect right away.
呢個修習方法非常之容易，非常之愉悅，喺當下一刻已經可以帶嚟效果。
And you can do something in order to to enhance, to improve the quality of your presence.
你可以做一啲嘢去提升你真真正正存在嘅呢一個特質。
I think just a few mindful breath, a smile, a few steps can make you more pleasant, more fresh, and the quality of your presence that you offer to him or to her will make him or her happier.
幾個嘅正面呼吸同埋正面咁樣步行，我哋已經可以培養到呢個能量，改善到我哋存在嘅品質。你可以將你真真正正存在呢個品質送俾你愛嘅人。
And all of that, breathing, smiling, making a few steps, are all practice of mindfulness.
呼吸、微笑同埋步行，呢啲全部都係正念嘅修習。
If you are truly in the here and the now, you can also practice the second mantra. You go to him, you go to her, you look into his eyes, and you smile and you say, darling, I know you are there and I'm very happy.
我係真真正正咁樣存在，你可以收集第二個真言，你可以走去佢嗰度同佢講， 親愛的，你喺呢度為咗我，我好開心。
This mantra is to recognize his or her presence as something very precious to you.
呢個真言可以去讓佢知道，佢真真正正愛你存在，你因而感到非常之幸福快樂。
You use the energy of mindfulness that is generated by your breathing, and you recognize that person. You embrace him or her in with that energy of mindfulness.
你用你培養到嘅正面能量去覺察佢嘅存在，你用你嘅正面能量去擁抱佢嘅存在。
And being recognized and being embraced by your mindfulness, that person will bloom like a flower right away.
佢有你嘅正面能量嘅覺察同埋擁抱，喺當下呢一刻，佢會好似鮮花一樣盛放。
But if you do not practice the first mantra, you are truly there in order to succeed in your practice of the second mantra.
但你一定要先收集第一項真言，你首先要自己真真正正存在，然後你先至可以收集第二項真言。
So the first mantra is to produce your presence. The second mantra is to recognize his or her presence.
第一項真言係幫助你真真正正咁樣存在，而第二項真言係要去覺察對方嘅存在。
If the other person has the impression that he is ignored by you, he does not have the impression of being loved by you.
如果佢覺得被你忽視嘅話，佢唔會覺得你係愛佢嘅。
And the other person might not be in front of you, but you can still practice the second mantra. You send him an email.
可能嗰個人而家唔喺你面前，但係你同樣可以收集，你可以發一個電郵俾佢。
I think it could take less than 1 minute to type the second mantra and to send to her and to him.
我哋去打呢個第二個真言，我哋需要嘅時間少於1分鐘，你已經可以將佢打好，發呢個電郵俾佢。
And there's no reason why we cannot practice these two mantras several times a day.
我哋每日都可以收集呢兩個真言好幾次。
The third mantra is practice when you notice that the other person suffers.
第三個真言係喺當你發覺對方正在痛苦嘅時候收集嘅。
Because you are mindful, you know something is not going well with him or with her.
因為你有正念覺察，你發覺到佢好似有一啲唔係太妥當嘅地方。
So you produce your true presence, you go to him or to her and you pronounce the mantra, darling, I know you suffer, that is why I am here for you.
你真真正正咁樣存在，你走去佢嗰度同佢講第三個真言，親愛的，我知道你正在痛苦，我喺呢一度。
When you suffer, when you are in difficulties, and the person you love does not know that, you suffer very deeply. But if the other person is aware that you suffer, that she come to you and tell you that she's there for you, you suffer less right away before he do something to help. He does something to help.
當你正在受苦嘅時候，如果有一個人佢走嚟同你講，我知道你正在受苦，我喺呢度啊，喺當下嗰刻，你已經會感到痛苦大大釋放，儘管佢未曾去做任何嘅事情。
And the fourth mantra you need to practice when you suffer, you yourself suffer, and you believe that your suffering has goes by him or her, the person you love the most.
第四個真言係喺你自己受苦嘅時間收集嘅。你認為你嘅痛苦係你最愛嘅人帶俾你嘅。
If it were another person who has said that to you, who had done that to you, you would have suffered less. But this is not another person. This is him. It's he. It's her who has said that to you, who has done it to you. So you suffer very deeply. You are deeply wounded.
如果係其他人同你講嗰句説話，或者對你做嗰件事，你唔會感覺到咁痛苦。但係因為正正係佢係嗰個人咁樣講，你深深受苦，你深深受到創傷。
You suffer very much, and you are sure that the other person wants to make you suffer. That is why you have intention to punish him or punish her.
你深深咁樣感到痛苦，你以為係佢令你痛苦，因此你想要去懲罰佢。
And the usual way is to show him or her that you don't need him anymore, you don't need her anymore. Alone you can survive very well.
我哋最常見嘅處理方法係，我哋向佢表示：我唔需要你，我根本就唔需要你，請你讓我自己一個人就已經得啦。
I think that many of us have done that several times.
我諗我哋之中有好多人都試過咁樣做。
The other person might notice that you are not happy, and he tries to come, and he asks, "Are you okay, darling? Do you suffer?" And you say, "Me suffer? Why do I have to suffer?"
佢知道你正在受苦，因此佢走嚟同你講：親愛的，你係咪受苦啊？你係咪覺得痛苦啊？但係你同佢講：我點解會痛苦啊？我一啲都唔痛苦。
You do not tell the truth. In fact, you suffer very deeply.
你冇對佢講事實，其實你係深深咁樣感到痛苦。
And when he tries to put his hand on your shoulder, you try to shun away. You say, "Leave me alone."
當佢將佢嘅手搭喺你嘅膊頭之上，你避開佢，你同佢講：你唔好理我。
You prefer to go to your room, lock your room, and cry inside the room.
你寧願走去你嘅房間，你鎖上你嘅房間，喺房間入邊喊。
You have the intention to punish the other person, to show him or her that you don't need him or her anymore. You can survive very well without him or her.
你想要懲罰嗰個人，你想要俾佢知道，即使冇咗佢，你仍然可以好好咁樣地生活。
And that kind of feeling, that kind of behavior, intention to punish, can last many days, many weeks, even many months.
呢個想要懲罰佢嘅思念，可以係延續到幾日或者係幾個月。
And not only you make yourself suffer, but you make the other person suffer.
你唔單止令自己痛苦，同時亦都令對方痛苦。
The fact is that you may be victims of a wrong perception.
事實上，你可能係一個錯誤認知嘅受害者。
The other person may not have the intention to make you suffer, and you believe he or she has that intention.
對方並唔係全心想你痛苦，但係你相信佢係全心咁樣做嘅。
That is why the Buddha advised us that when anger manifests, we should not say anything, we should not do anything, because saying something or doing something in anger, you might make a mistake.
因此，佛陀建議我哋當憤怒生起嘅時候，我哋唔好講話，亦都唔好做任何事，因為如果我哋喺嗰個時間講一啲嘢或者做一啲事嘅時候，我哋可能會犯錯。
You should Go home to your suffering. Breathing in, breathing out, and look deeply into the nature of that suffering.
我哋通過正念嘅呼吸，我哋深深咁樣去覺察我哋嘅痛苦。
You should use your mindfulness, your concentration, in order to hold your suffering and look deeply into the nature of your suffering, and then you find out the root of your suffering.
我哋用正念覺察同埋專注去擁抱我哋嘅感受。
And with that practice of mindfulness and concentration, you may find out that your suffering is not well founded. It is wrong perception.
我哋去睇清楚我哋痛苦嘅本性，好可能我哋嘅痛苦係嚟自錯誤嘅認知。
So from wrong perception, from pain, you come to understanding, and understanding will remove the suffering and will bring another feeling, which is light, which is liberating.
由了解，我哋可以帶嚟智慧，而智慧係可以為我哋帶嚟解脫嘅。
In Plum Village, where we live and practice, we usually offer our friends who come and practice with us 3 sentences, so that they can use during the time they are angry.
喺法國梅村我哋住嘅地方，我哋經常會將3句句子送俾到嚟參加禪修嘅人。呢3句句子係可以喺我哋感到憤怒嘅時候用嘅。
You might take a piece of paper the size of a credit card and write down these 3 sentences.
你可以用一張紙，信用卡大小嘅紙寫低呢3句説話。
The first sentence is, Darling, I suffer. I'm angry.
第一句係親愛的，我感到痛苦、憤怒。
And I want you to know it.
我想你知道。
Instead of telling him or her that you don't suffer, you confess that you suffer. You are angry at him or her, and you want him to or her to know it.
我哋唔會去同佢講，我哋冇感到痛苦，我哋會講出事實，我哋正感到痛苦，感到憤怒，我哋想佢知道。
And if you can bring yourself to write it down or to tell him or her, you suffer less right away because you have removed pride from yourself.
如果你可以同佢講呢句説話，或者寫呢句説話俾佢，你嘅痛苦已經大大減少，因為你將你嘅驕傲放下。
In the beginning, you and the other person have promised to each other that you will share suffering or happiness.
最初你哋互相承諾苦樂與共。
So now when you suffer, you allow him or her to share your suffering. That's natural. You are faithful to your vow.
因此，當而家你感到痛苦嘅時候，你話俾佢聽你感到痛苦，同佢分享你嘅感受，呢個係忠於你最初嘅承諾，係好自然嘅事。
So to be able to confess, to tell the other person that you suffer, you are angry, that you want that person to know it, is the right thing to do, and if you do it, you will suffer less already.
你讓佢知道你正在痛苦，感到憤怒，呢件係正確嘅事。 如果能咁樣做嘅話，你嘅痛苦已經可以減少。
The first sentence may mean, I don't know why you have said such a thing to me. I don't know why you have done such a thing to me. Please explain. The meaning of that first sentence is like that.
第一句句子嘅意思亦都係我唔知道佢點解要咁樣講，唔知道佢點解要咁樣做，希望佢可以為你解釋。
The second sentence is, I am doing my best.
第二句句子係我已經盡咗我嘅力。
It means that because I am a practitioner, I do not do anything or say anything when anger is in me. I have been practicing mindful breathing, mindful walking, to look deeply into my anger, and hopefully I will be able to transform it. That is the meaning of the second sentence. Darling, I am doing my best.
呢一句句子嘅意思係話，我已經作為一個禪修者，我已經用我嘅修習去處理我嘅情緒。喺我感到憤怒嘅時候，我冇講嘢，亦都冇做任何事，我單單去覺察我嘅情緒，希望可以轉化到我呢一個憤怒。呢、個就係第二句句子嘅意思。
This second sentence can be very helpful. It might inspire respect on the part of the other person. The other person will be proud of you because you are a real practitioner. When you get angry, you don't shout, you don't punish, you don't do anything. You know how to go back to your breathing, you practice walking, and you are taking good of your anger. He or she will be proud of you.
呢一句句子可以帶嚟好大嘅幫助，因為佢會覺得以你為傲，因為你係一個禪修者，喺你感到憤怒嘅時候，你通過正面呼吸、正面步行嘅修習去處理你嘅感受，你唔會向佢大嗌，亦都唔會懲罰佢。
And the second thing is that that second sentence is an indirect invitation for the other person to meditate, to practice.
第二句句子亦都係一個間接嘅邀請對方去做禪修，去深入咁樣觀察。
The other person will ask himself or herself the question, what I have done, what have I said, so that she is upset like that. So he is practicing mindfulness, concentration, and find out. 佢亦都會去收集，佢會問自己究竟我講過啲乜嘢，或者做過啲乜嘢令佢咁唔開心。咁呢一個就係對佢嘅一個邀請，讓佢都可以一齊去收集，用念同埋定去收集。Imagine you and the other person are practicing together. That's very beautiful.
試想像你同佢一齊收集，呢件係非常之美麗嘅事。
Both of you are real practitioners.
你哋兩個都係真正嘅收集者。
And the third and last sentence is, please help.
第三句句子，最後一句句子係請幫助我。
It means that although I am trying my best, but I might not succeed in getting out of this anger. So please do something to help me.
意思即係話，儘管我已經盡咗力，可能我並未能夠成功從呢個痛苦之中走出嚟。請你幫助我。
And according to the practice of Plum Village, if you are not able to transform your anger before 24 hours, and then you have to go to him or to her, to tell him or her with these three sentences.
喺門村喺我哋嘅修習入邊，如果我哋自己唔可以喺24小時之內轉化憤怒嘅話，我哋要走到對方嗰度，同佢講出呢3句句子。
Because keeping the suffering alone for you more than 24 hours is not good for your health.
因為如果你將呢個痛苦嘅感受擺喺你自己心入邊超過24小時，對你嘅身體健康係唔好嘅。
And if you don't feel that you can say these 3 sentences calmly, you might write it down and put it on his desk.
如果你以為你自己唔會可以好平靜咁同佢講到呢3句句子，你可以寫低放喺佢嘅台上邊。
With your BlackBerry, you can send these 3 sentences to him or to her.
或者用你嘅手提電話將呢3句句子傳送俾佢。
Many of our friends who come to Plumbush have practiced that, and they found it very useful, very helpful.
好多嚟到門村嘅朋友收集呢3句句子，對佢哋嚟講係可以為佢哋帶嚟好大嘅幫助，係非常之有用嘅練習。
If you are capable of telling him or her that, if you can write down these 3 sentences, you are able to remove the pride in you, and you suffer less right away.
如果你可以講出或者寫低呢3句句子俾佢，你即係話你已經放下咗你嘅驕傲，你嘅痛苦會大大減少。
So this little piece of paper you can slip into your wallet, and when you get angry at him or her, you take it out and you read, and you know exactly what to do and what not to do.
你可以將呢一張小小嘅紙放喺你嘅銀包入邊，當你感到憤怒嘅時間，你拎呢張紙出嚟，咁你就可以知道自己應該做啲乜嘢，唔應該做啲乜嘢。
There is that story that everyone in my country know, the story of Mr. Trương and his wife. He went to the army, and at home his wife gave birth to a little boy.
喺越南喺我嘅國家，每一個人都聽過呢一個故事，張先生同張太太嘅故事。張先生佢上戰場嘅時候，張太太喺屋企生咗一個 BB。
The young man, the young father, was lucky enough to survive the war and went home to his young wife, and the first time he saw his little boy.
張先生非常之幸運，佢喺戰爭中存活，佢返到屋企，第一次見到佢嘅小孩子。
The young mother and her son went to the door of the village and welcomed Mr. Trương, and that was a very happy moment for all of them.
呢個女士同呢個小男孩去到村口接呢位女士嘅丈夫，嗰一刻係非常之幸福快樂嘅時刻。
But according to the tradition, you have to announce the good news to ancestors, and that is why the young mother asked her husband to take care of the little boy, and she went to the marketplace to do some shopping in order to prepare an offering to be placed on the ancestral altar.
根據越南嘅傳統，我哋要將呢個好消息話俾祖先聽，因此呢位年輕嘅母親叫爸爸照顧呢個小男孩，而佢自己呢就去到市場嗰度買一啲嘢，準備煮一啲餸放喺祖先桌前面。
On the way home, the young Mr. Trương persuaded the little boy to call him Daddy, but the little boy refused.
喺屋企入邊，張先生想教呢位小男孩叫佢做爸爸，但係呢個小男孩拒絕。
Mister, you are not my daddy. My daddy is someone who used to come every night.
先生啊，你唔係我嘅爸爸，我嘅爸爸每一晚都會嚟我屋企。
My mother talked to him a lot and cried with him a lot every night.
每一晚我嘅媽媽會同佢講好多嘢，會同佢一齊喊。
And when my mother sit down, he sat down. When my mother lie down, he lie down.
當我媽媽坐低，佢會坐低；當我媽媽躺下來，佢亦都會躺下來。
And Mr. Trương suffered very much, and all his happiness vanished right away.
張先生深深地感到痛苦，所有幸福快樂亦都完全消散。
Because he was victim of one wrong perception.
因為佢係一個錯誤認知嘅受害者。
He believed that during his absence, someone else to come at night.
佢相信，當佢喺戰場嘅時候，每一晚都有一個人去到佢屋企。
But in fact, what happens is that the lady talked to her own shadow every night. She was so lonely.
其實事實係呢位女士，佢每一晚都係同自己講嘢，佢感到非常之孤單。
One day, the little boy came from the hamlet and came home from the hamlet and said, "Everyone has a daddy. Why don't I have one?"
有一晚，呢個小男孩從村入邊翻到屋企，佢問媽媽：點解人人都有爸爸而我冇嘅？
So Mrs. Trương thought that it's so complicated to talk about the army and the war. So she just pointed to her shadow projected by the kerosene lamp on the wall and said, "This is your daddy. Why don't you say, 'Good evening, Daddy'?"
因此張太太佢覺得如果佢要解釋戰爭、軍隊等等係非常之複雜嘅，因此佢指住火水燈影到堂影喺牆上面嘅一個影子，佢同呢個小男孩講：呢個影子就係你嘅爸爸，你可以同佢講：爸爸你好。
And because she felt so lonely, so alone, she talked to her own shadow. She said, "My husband, you have been away for such a long time. How could I alone raise our child?" And she cried.
佢感到非常之痛苦同埋孤單，因此佢同自己嘅影子講嘢。佢同呢個影子講：你成日都走咗去咁耐，我點樣可以一個人湊大呢個小孩子？
And of course, when she sit down, the shadow sit down. When she lie down, the shadow lie down.
當然，當佢坐低嘅時候，呢個影子會坐低；當佢躺下來嘅時候，呢個影子會躺下來。
But the wrong perception in him made him suffer very deeply, so that when the lady came home from the market, he did not look at her anymore. He did not answer her question anymore. His heart has become a block of ice.
係因為呢個錯誤嘅認知，張先生佢深深感到痛苦。當張太太從市場上返嚟嘅時候，張先生再冇同佢講任何説話，亦都唔答佢嘅問題。張先生嘅心好似一個冰咁。
And when she worked silently preparing the offering, and after that, after the offering has been placed in the altar, he burned incense, he prayed, he touched the earth 4 times, and then he rolled the mat up and did not allow her to pay respect to the ancestors, believing that his wife has committed adultery, not qualified to present herself in front of ancestors.
當所有餸菜都準備好放咗喺祖先桌前，張先生佢上香跪拜，然後佢將地席捲起，唔讓佢嘅太太去拜祖先，因為佢覺得太太對佢不忠，唔可以俾佢拜祖先。
She was deeply humiliated.
張太太覺得深深受辱。
After the ceremony, instead of staying home and share a meal, he went to the village and tried to drink alcohol in order to forget his suffering.
喺拜祖先嘅儀式之後，張先生離開咗屋企，去到村入邊飲酒，企圖想避開佢嘅痛苦。
And did not come home until 2 in the morning.
直到深夜2點鐘先返屋企。
And after having slept for a few hours, he left the house again for the liquor shop, and several days like that.
瞓幾個鐘頭之後，起身嘅時候，佢又再走到去村入邊飲酒，持續咗幾日。
And the lady could not bear anymore. She jumped into the river and got drowned.
呢一個太太佢再受不了，佢最終於投河自盡。
This is a true story, because the shrine for her memory is still there.
呢個係真實嘅故事。呢位太太嘅紀念碑而家仲係喺越南。
And the king of the Lê dynasty passing by saw the shrine and asked about and learned about story. So he wrote a poem, and the poem is still seen in the shrine.
李朝嘅皇帝佢途經嗰個村落，見到呢個小男孩，因此佢知道呢個故事。而家呢個太太嘅紀念碑仍然喺越南。
That evening, learning that his wife is dead, the young father came home to look after his little boy. And when he lighted the kerosene lamp, the boy shouted, "Mister, he is my daddy!" And he pointed to the shadow of his father on the wall.
當呢個太太死咗之後，佢嘅先生返到屋企照顧呢個小男孩。喺個夜晚，佢點上火水燈。呢個男孩子見到牆上邊嘅影，佢指住呢個影子話：先生啊，呢個就係我嘅爸爸啦。
And only at that moment, the young father realized that he has been a victim of a wrong perception.
喺嗰刻，呢個年輕嘅父親知道佢係一個錯誤認知嘅受害者。
But it is already too late. She is dead.
但已經太遲，因為佢嘅太太已經死咗。
He should have gone to her and practiced the fourth mantra.
其實佢應該走到佢太太身旁，去收集第4項真言。
He should tell her, "My wife, darling, I suffer so much. Please help. Please explain." The little boy said that during my absence, someone used to come every night. Tell me why you have done such a thing to me.
其實佢應該走去問佢嘅太太，同佢太太講：我深深受苦，因為我哋嘅仔佢話俾我聽，每一晚都有一個人嚟到我哋屋企，究竟係發生咗咩事呢？
If he had done that, the lady would have had a chance to explain, and both of them could have avoided the tragedy to happen.
如果佢有咁樣做嘅話，佢嘅太太就有機會向佢解釋呢個悲劇可以避免。
And the lady who committed the same mistake, she should have gone to him and asked for help.
呢個太太犯咗同樣嘅錯誤，其實佢應該走到佢嘅先生嗰度問下佢究竟發生咗咩事，叫佢嘅先生幫助佢。
She could have come and tell her husband, darling, my husband, I suffer very much. I don't understand why from the time I come back from the market, you did not look at me anymore. You did not answer my question anymore. Have I done anything awful to be treated like that?
呢個太太佢應該走去問佢嘅丈夫，點解自從我喺市場翻嚟之後，你又唔望我，又唔同我講嘢？我有冇做咗啲事令你要咁樣對我呢？
If she had practiced the fourth mantra, he would have told her about what the little boy said, and then misunderstanding will be removed.
如果佢有咁樣做嘅話，佢嘅丈夫就會能夠向佢解釋，其實係佢嘅兒子講咗一啲説話。如果佢哋有咁樣做嘅話，所有嘅誤解亦都會消散。
Many of us entertain a wrong perception for a long time, maybe 10 years.
我哋之中有好多人，我哋執住一個錯誤嘅見解，一段好長嘅時間，或者係10年。
And during that time, not only we suffer, but the other person suffer also very deeply.
喺呢段時間，唔單止係我哋感到痛苦，而對方亦都深深感到痛苦。
So, my dear friends, if next time you suffer and you believed that your suffering has been caused by the other person, don't do like Mr. Chung. Go to him, go to her, and practice the fourth mantra.
因此，我嘅朋友，如果你感到痛苦嘅話，你唔好好似張先生咁樣，你要走到對方身邊，收集第4項真言。
The Buddha said that in our daily life we have countless wrong perceptions.
佛陀話喺我哋嘅生命入邊，我哋有好多錯誤嘅認知。
We should not be too sure of our perceptions.
對於我哋嘅認知，我哋唔好太過肯定。
And to meditate means to look deeply at our perception in order to discover what is wrong with our perceptions.
禪修即係深深咁樣觀察我哋嘅認知，去發覺有冇一啲認知係錯誤嘅。
Things are impermanent, and we believe them to be permanent.
事物無常，但係有時我哋會覺得佢係常存。
Things are without a separate self, but you believe them to be separate entities.
事物並冇獨立嘅自我，但係有時我哋會覺得事物係獨立存在嘅。
So to meditate means to see the nature of interconnectedness of everything.
禪修亦即係去觀察萬事萬物，佢哋互相關聯。
And to be able to remove all kind of discrimination and separation and suffering.
我哋移去一切嘅分別、歧視同埋痛苦。
The word perception, samsara, has the upper part as a sign, and the lower part as your mind.
認知即係想，上半部係上字，下半部係心。
Using your mind, you get a form, a sign, and that sign become the object of your perception.
我哋嘅心去睇到一啲妄想嘅時候，呢個妄想變成心嘅對象。
Suppose when we look up at the sky, we see many clouds, and when we look into our Dharma hole, we don't see any cloud.
我哋向上望，見到天上面有好多雲，但係如果我哋望住呢個禪修 禪修中心望住呢個禪堂，我哋喺禪堂裏邊見唔到有雲。
We are so sure that there is no cloud in the Dhamma hall.
我哋好肯定喺呢個禪堂入邊係冇任何雲。
But the fact is that we are actually embraced by clouds, clouds within and cloud outside.
但係事實上，我哋每一個人都係被雲在擁抱我哋，喺我哋內在，喺我哋周圍。
There is humidity in the air.
喺空氣入邊有水分。
And water vapor is well there in front of you and behind of you.
喺前邊同埋後邊都有水分。
The cloud is there but not visible.
雲就喺呢度，但係你睇唔到佢。
If this air, this mass of air encounters something cold, and then the cloud will be visible.
如果呢啲水分遇到冷空氣，一啲凍嘅嘢，呢朵雲就會變得係可以我哋睇到嘅。
Just because you don't see it, it does not mean that it is not there.
你睇唔到並唔代表佢唔存在。
So to say that there is no cloud in the Dhamma hall, this is our Dhamma hall, that is a wrong perception.
如果我哋話喺呢個禪堂入邊冇雲，呢一個講法係錯嘅。
And when you contemplate a beautiful sunset, you might think that you are in touch with the sun of the present moment.
當我哋去觀賞日落嘅時候，可能我哋以為我哋睇到嘅係當下呢一刻嘅太陽。
But all of us know that it takes 8 minutes for the light of the sun to come to the planet Earth. And the image of the sun that we see there is only the image of the sun 8 minutes ago.
我哋所有人都知道太陽嘅光傳到嚟地球需要8分鐘，因此我哋而家睇到嘅太陽其實係8分鐘之前嘅太陽。
To say that you can see the sun of the present moment, that is a wrong perception.
如果我哋話我哋可以睇到當下呢一刻嘅太陽，呢個係一個錯誤嘅認知。
That is why the Buddha said that we are full of wrong perceptions, and if we count so much on our wrong perceptions, we will suffer for a long time.
因此佛陀話：我哋有好多錯誤嘅認知，如果我哋依賴我哋錯誤嘅認知，我哋會長久咁樣受苦。
And to meditate means to sit down on the bank of the river of perceptions and look into the nature of every perception.
禪修即係話我哋坐喺認知嘅河側邊，我哋深深咁樣去觀察認知之河。
We shall come back to the question of perception in our last Dhamma talk.
喺最後一次嘅佛法講座之中，我哋會再講到更多關於認知。
We should meditate a little more about the suffering in us and the suffering in the other person.
我哋會更多咁樣去收集關於觀察我哋自己心入邊嘅痛苦同埋其他人嘅痛苦。
When we suffer, we usually think and believe that we are the only one who suffer. The other person does not suffer. That is a wrong perception.
當我哋痛苦嘅時候，我哋好可能會諗，會以為淨係我哋一個人痛苦，而對方並唔感到痛苦。呢個係一個錯誤嘅認知。
In fact, we have suffered. And there were times when we did not know how to handle our suffering. Not only we are victims of suffering, but the people around us, including the one we love. have become victims of our own suffering.
其實我哋都有痛苦，當我哋感到痛苦而唔知道點樣去處理嘅時候，喺我哋周圍嘅人亦都會成為我哋痛苦嘅受害者。
We have the feeling, the perception that we have not made them suffer. That is not true.
我哋以為我哋並冇令任何人受苦，其實呢個係錯嘅。
We have reacted in such a way that make us suffer and make the other person suffer also.
我哋嘅行為令我哋自己痛苦，亦都令對方痛苦。
The first step is to go home to us and getting in touch with our suffering and listen deeply to the suffering inside.
第一樣要做嘅係返嚟自身嘅階段，去聆聽我哋自己心入邊嘅痛苦，了解我哋嘅痛苦。
Because when you suffer, not only you become the victim of your suffering, but the people around also become victim of your suffering.
因為當你痛苦嘅時候，唔單單你自己係受害者，喺你身旁嘅人亦都係受害者。
Understanding of our own suffering will give rise to compassion, and compassion will make us suffer less.
了解自己嘅痛苦會帶嚟慈悲，當慈悲生起，我哋嘅痛苦會減少。
The Buddha said the worst enemy, our worst enemy, is ourselves.
佛陀話：我哋最大嘅敵人其實係我哋自己。
When we have understood our own suffering, it becomes much easier to understand his or her suffering.
當我哋能夠了解自己嘅痛苦，去了解其他人、了解對方嘅痛苦，會變得容易。
With the practice of mindfulness and concentration, we can see very clearly that the other person has a lot of suffering in him or her, like we used to have.
通過念同埋定嘅修習，我哋可以睇到喺對方之中，其實佢都係同我哋一齊，同我哋一樣感到痛苦。
The other person suffer deeply, but does not know how to handle, to transform the suffering inside. That is why not only he or she is victim of the suffering, but many people around that person become victims of that suffering also.
佢感到深深嘅痛苦，但係佢唔知道點樣去處理同埋轉化，因而喺佢周圍嘅人亦都因為佢嘅痛苦而受苦。
And that person has no way to get out of the situation. So far, no one has helped him or her to know how to handle the suffering and to transform and to get out.
佢唔知道點樣去處理佢嘅痛苦，冇人教過佢一啲方法去處理同埋轉化佢嘅痛苦，因此佢無法從佢嘅痛苦之中走出嚟。
And with mindfulness and concentration, we can see clearly that the other person does not need punishment. He needs help.
通過念同埋定嘅修習，我哋可以清楚睇到，其實對方唔需要任何嘅懲罰，佢需要嘅係幫助。
And that person may be our father, our mother, our son, or our daughter.
嗰個人可能係我哋嘅父親、母親、仔或者女。
So when we have that kind of understanding, that intention to help, we don't suffer anymore. In fact, we are motivated by compassion and the desire, the intention to help him or her instead of punishing her.
當我哋有了解嘅時候，我哋唔再想要去懲罰佢， 相反，我哋係想去幫助佢，因而呢個慈悲會令我哋嘅痛苦消失。
With the practice of mindfulness and concentration, understanding your own suffering, you'll be able to come to understand his or her suffering, and you may be the first person that can help him or her. You are his bodhisattva, her bodhisattva.
通過念同埋定嘅修習，我哋會可以生起智慧同埋了解，我哋想要去幫助佢，而事實上，可能你係第一個人可以幫到佢，你係佢嘅菩薩。
As a bodhisattva, you are capable of practicing compassionate listening and loving speech.
你係一個菩薩，你可以收集慈悲聆聽同埋愛語。
You come to that person and you say, "Darling, I know you have suffered a lot during the past many years."
你去到佢身邊同佢講：親愛的，我知道喺過去咁多年入邊，你都受到好大嘅痛苦。
I could not help you, and in fact, I have made the situation worse.
我不單止冇幫到你，反而我令到情況變得更加差。
I have been reacting violently, stubbornly, and make you suffer more.
我好暴力、好頑固咁樣去回應，因此我令你嘅痛苦加劇。
I am sorry, it's not my intention to make you suffer, Daddy or Mommy, just because I did not understand the suffering inside of you, the difficulties inside of you.
對唔住啊，媽咪或者爸爸，我其實唔係全心要咁樣做，只係因為我唔能夠了解到你心中嘅痛苦。
You should help me, darling. You should tell me about your suffering, your difficulties. If you help me to understand, I will not repeat the same kind of mistakes.
親愛的，請你幫助我，請你話俾我聽你心入邊嘅痛苦，幫助我去了解。如果你可以咁樣做嘅話，我就唔會再犯以前犯過嘅錯。
It is not my intention to make you suffer, darling. In fact, I want you to be happy. I made you suffer because I am ignorant. I did not understand your suffering and how to help you.
親愛的，其實我唔會全心想令你痛苦，相反，我係好想你幸福快樂，只係因為我唔了解，唔知道點樣做，因而過去曾經令你痛苦。
If you don't help me, who will help me?
如果你唔幫我，邊個可以幫到我呢？
And this kind of this way of talking is possible on the 5th day of a retreat.
喺禪修營嘅第5日，我哋已經可以成功咁樣去溝通。
Because in the first 4 days, we have practiced mindfulness and concentration, listening to our suffering, understanding the suffering, and we are able to understand, to see the suffering in the other person. And because we don't want to punish anymore, we are capable of talking like that. That is called gentle speech, loving speech.
因為喺禪修營嘅頭嗰4日，我哋培養到念同埋定嘅能量，我哋去收集慈悲聆聽同埋愛語，因此我哋可以好溫柔嘅語言去同對方溝通，用愛語同對方溝通。
And if you talk to that person with that kind of language, he or she will open their heart and tell you about the suffering inside of them.
如果你用溫柔同埋愛語同佢講話嘅時候，佢會打開佢嘅心，話俾你聽佢心中嘅痛苦。
And if you know how to listen with compassion, 1 hour of listening can bring a lot of relief.
如果你懂得慈悲聆聽，咁樣去聽1個鐘頭嘅話，已經可以大大咁樣釋放痛苦。
So far, no one has been able to listen to him, to her. So far, no one is capable of understanding his or her suffering. You may be the first one who do that, and you are playing really the role of Bodhisattva Kuan Yin.
到而家為止，從來冇一個人可以咁樣聽佢講嘢，從來冇一個人可以了解到佢心入邊嘅痛苦。可能你就係第一個人可以聽佢講嘢，去了解佢。你扮演緊觀世音菩薩嘅角色。
In fact, you are a real extension of Kuan Yin, because in your heart there is some compassion, some understanding and goodwill already.
其實你真正係觀世音菩薩嘅延續，因為你嘅心入邊有慈悲，有好嘅心願。
The techniques of listening is mindfulness of compassion.
聆聽嘅技巧係需要正念同埋慈悲。
You try to remember one thing. During the time of listening like this, I have only one purpose, to allow him or her to suffer less by empty his heart.
我哋要記得一樣嘢，我哋聆聽嘅目的只有一個，就係要幫助佢講出佢心底嘅説話，釋放佢嘅痛苦。
If you can maintain that mindfulness alive, you are protected by compassion, and what the other person say will not touch off irritation and anger in you, because what the other person may say may be full of wrong perception, accusation, bitterness, blames, and so on.
如果你喺聆聽嘅過程裏邊能夠保持正念嘅話，你會得到慈悲嘅保護。因此，儘管當對方講嘅説話充滿苦澀或者指責，你唔會受到對方説話嘅影響，唔會感到憤怒、不安等等。
You remind yourself that even if he has a lot of wrong perceptions, you would not like to interrupt him or her now, because that will ruin the session. You will have plenty of chance later on, and you will be able to offer some informations to help him or her correct their wrong perceptions, but not now.
你提醒自己喺聆聽嘅時候，儘管佢有好多錯誤嘅認知，但係你唔係會喺當下嗰一刻指出呢一啲錯處，因為如果你咁樣做嘅話，你會破壞咗你哋互相之間嘅溝通。喺往後，你有好多機會可以指出或者嘗試再次去話俾佢聽關於佢錯誤嘅認知，但係喺嗰刻請你唔好打斷佢嘅講話。
And with this mindfulness of compassion, you are protected, and you continue to listen with compassion. And that is why your listening can be very healing to him or to her.
因為有正面同埋慈悲嘅保護，你可以慈悲咁樣深深聆聽佢嘅説話，幫佢大大釋放佢嘅痛苦。
We have organized several retreats for psychotherapists, and we have found out that many therapists do not have the capacity to listen to their own suffering.
我哋曾經為心理治療師舉辦過幾次禪修營，我哋喺禪修營之中發覺好多心理治療師其實佢哋並冇能力去傾聽佢哋自己嘅痛苦。
If they are not capable of listening to their own suffering, how could they listen to the suffering of the other people?
如果佢哋唔能夠傾聽自己心中嘅痛苦，佢哋又點樣可以聽到別人嘅痛苦呢？
That is why in retreats for psychotherapists, you always advocate the practice of listening to your own suffering first.
因此喺我哋心理治療師舉辦嘅禪修營入邊，我哋往往都會去同佢哋講，佢哋首先要傾聽自己嘅痛苦。
The fact is that when you have compassion in your heart, when you practice mindfulness and compassion to listen, the practice of listening can be very healing and can bring great relief to the person you listen to.
如果我哋有正念同埋慈悲，我哋去慈悲正面咁樣傾聽嘅話，我哋可以為佢帶嚟好大嘅連結，幫佢釋放心中嘅痛苦。
In a retreat in northern Germany, on the 6th day, many young people came to report to us that last night, the night before, they had used their portable telephone and spoke to their fathers with that kind of language and listened to them with compassion and was able to reconcile with their fathers just by using the telephone to practice.
喺德國嘅其中一個禪修營，到咗第6日，有好多嘅年輕人走嚟同我哋講，佢前一晚成功咁樣用手提電話同佢嘅父親重建溝通，佢哋用愛語同埋溫柔嘅語句同佢哋嘅父親重建溝通和解。
And the practice of Bodhisattva Kuan Yin is just to listen with compassion.
觀世音菩薩佢可以慈悲聆聽。
And if you are a disciple of Kuan Yin, you should learn her way.
如果你係觀音菩薩嘅弟子，你應該去學習佢聆聽嘅方法。
The practice of compassionate listening and loving speech can always restore communication and bring about reconciliation.
慈悲聆聽同埋愛語嘅收集喺任何時刻都可以為我哋帶嚟和解、重建溝通。
5 days of practice can make your heart softer and you'll be capable of talking with compassion and listening with compassion.
5日嘅收集會令你嘅心變得柔軟，你可以去收集愛語、慈悲傾聽。
Don't allow the difficult situation to drag on like that for a long time. You have the capacity of transforming the situation and bring about restore communication, happiness.
唔好讓困難嘅情況持續存在，你有能力去收集愛語、重建溝通，去改善呢一啲情況。
We shall continue tomorrow.
聽日我哋會繼續。